Welcome to the Jaron Jarvis channel. I am Jaron Jarvis. Today, I would like to introduce to you, Blood Beach. I like to go to the beach for a couple days every year. Any more than a weekend I get tired of the beach because I burn to a crisp so easily. Anyway, this summer, I've been begging my boyfriend to go for a weekend but money is so tight. He wouldn't come with me, so I decided to go with a friend. Now my friend likes to drink and stay drunk, and I can't drink much due to medical reasons. So my fun beach weekend turned into her going off to get drunk and hook up with guys, while I roamed the beaches and the boardwalk myself. I took a bus to the other end of the city to do some exploring. I visited shops and private beaches all day and treated myself to a massage. Fuck my friend and her drinking. I was going to enjoy myself no matter what. After being on the bus and relaxing at the massage parlor for a couple hours, I decided to roam the beach again. I became restless and needed a walk. I ended up on a private beach with almost no condos along it. To my right was a pretty high cliff. So I was very surprised when I saw people jumping off of it. I thought that jumping from that height would hurt significantly and possibly cause injury. I had looked up in time to see someone falling down into the water, so I sat down in the sand to watch. But then I realized they weren't jumping. They were being pushed. 3 guys grabbed another by the arms and shoulders and heaved him off the edge of the cliff. I got up and hid behind some boulders, hoping they didn't see me. The last thing I wanted was to end up being pushed into the water myself. I wasn't a very good swimmer as it was, let alone with the waves rising up and down. I peeked out from behind the boulder trying to figure out these guys' vantage point, still hoping they couldn't see me. While I was concentrating on what the men's next move was, I heard a scream near where the other men had been pushed into the water. I quickly looked over as I was hearing a huge splash, instinctively crouching lower to the ground behind the boulder. My eyes locked onto a spurt of blood and water gushing out from whatever had made the splash, as the man that screamed was backstroking away from the horrific scene. My eyes missed what made the splash, but the first man that had hit the water was gone. The second one had reached a boulder and was trying to climb out of the water. He didn't have anywhere else to go. The men at the top of the cliff were peering down, not doing anything but watching and waiting to see what happened to the men they pushed. All of a sudden, before anyone had time to react, out of the water near the boulder where the other man was climbing upon came a huge, black, sleek head. Almost faster than I could blink, jaws snapped onto the man and pulled him into the water. Blood turned the water surrounding the boulder red. There was no splash this time. Horrified, I looked up to the men on top of the cliff again. They seemed just as shocked as I was, which is strange considering they just committed murder. They were still waiting to see what would happen next. I kept glancing from them and back to the water. I didn't know what I should do, but I was too horrified to move. On a glance to the water I saw ripples. Whatever had eaten those men was swimming near the surface, approaching the beach. Closer and closer it swam to the shallows, and, still frozen, I watched as it climbed out of the water near the base of the cliff. It appeared to be 40 feet long, sleek black skin stretched taut over a frame similar to a Komodo dragon. A long paddle-like tail made up half its body length. I wasn't sure how it was able to swim efficiently with its legs bent like they were. Once it was out of the water it stopped and sniffed the air. It threw its head back and pointed its nose straight up, showing off its sharp, needle teeth hanging out of its jaw. It looked up at the cliff and then looked over to the boulder I was hiding behind. The men at the top of the cliff followed its gaze. I had been spotted by both the monster and the group of men. Obviously picking the easier choice, the sea dragon started toward me. I had nowhere to go except starting to run as fast as I could away from it. I glanced over my shoulder and noticed, thanking the Lord, that this thing was pretty clumsy on land. Its tail made it too heavy to move fast, and it wasn't built for moving on sand. Unfortunately, neither was I. Realizing that it wasn't going to catch me by running after me, it darted back into the water. Still running, I watched to my right as ripples in the water indicated that it was following me through the water at a much faster pace than I was running. I kept running and keeping an eye on it, but it swam farther up past me. I realized instantly what it was doing. It was planning on coming out of the water onto the sand ahead of me to block me. There was no way I was going to let that happen, so I cut perpendicularly to the trajectory I was already on. I started running in the direction of the town where the restaurants and shops were. Behind me, about 50 feet up from where I would have ended up, the monster had climbed out of the water. It saw that I had changed course and was farther away than it had anticipated. It narrowed its size and slid back into the water, turning around to watch me like an alligator would watch its prey. Figuring I was safe, I was able to slow down and take a bit of a breather. Glancing back one last time, I saw that the dragon was still watching me, needle teeth bared in a snarl. I imagined it must be pretty pissed that it didn't catch me. Stopping for just a moment, I swung my backpack around and pulled out a solid chocolate lighthouse that I had just bought at the candy store before hitting the beach. I unwrapped the candy and threw it as far as I could toward the water. Swimming back toward the shore and nostrils flaring, the dragon slithered out of the water to examine the candy. It stuck out a snaky tongue and licked at it. It must have liked it because it picked it up and started back toward the water, reminding me of my dog when he picks up a bone and runs off with it to hide and chew it in peace. After the dragon was gone, just to be safe, I started running toward the town again. I didn't know what to do about the men on the cliff, so I did the only thing I knew I could. I went back to the candy store where I bought the chocolate lighthouse and called the police and told them about the men pushing others into the water, and all the blood I saw when they hit the rocks. I omitted the part about the sea monster, highly doubting they would believe me on that account. I just hope that those men were caught.